to do some equations today. This is kind of a 9 through 12 algebra. Some of your foundational things that you would use throughout even your later years in high school, but things you learn, you're introduced in 8th grade, and you really learn it hopefully in 9th grade, and then you continue. So we'll solve some multi-step equations, and then we'll do some slope-intercept form going from a form that's not slope-intercept form to slope-intercept form. Alright, so first of all, just your general rules in solving equations in general. It's kind of your PEMDAS backwards, your please excuse my dear Aunt Sally that you learned a long time ago with order of operations. It's kind of upside down. You'll see that in a second. So your general rule is, and I'm just going to abbreviate, that's distributive property. And then we will combine like terms. We will look for these things. We won't really have this until my 4th or 5th problem that I'll do. So you dpCLT. We will, what I call grow, you will get rid of if you have what I call vibes. If you have variables on both sides, you need to get rid of one of those variables. All right, and then here's your PEMDAS upside down. Then you will, except you don't have the please at the bottom, but this is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, so it's upside down. So we will, this is your two-step stuff. Every two-step equation is solved. Now there are a few little things here or there where there's some tricky problems that you will learn, but in general, this is how it works. So this is subtract or add, one or the other, and then this divide or multiply, you will see one or the other, and then you would get rid of exponents, and we won't have any exponents today, but if you're doing Pythagorean theorem, if you're doing quadratics, you would have an exponent. So this is the plan that we will follow as we do a few of these. Okay, first off, I'm going to start with, if you watch a video from our 7th and 8th grade teachers here at Scout Central, they're going to do some two-step equations, I believe. And so this is just in the SADME part of what I wrote down a while ago as your general rules. So we look for distributive property, there's not any. We look for combined like terms. We look for variable on both sides. We won't have any of that. So now we've directly jumped to the SADME part. So you get rid of subtraction or addition first, and then you get rid of division, multiplication, and then it's over. So you see here, here's my x that I'm trying to get all by himself or herself. So I'm going to do minus 7, minus 7. As you get older, you will just kind of pick up your 7 and just throw them over there and change the sign without writing all these little steps out. Normally during 9th grade, by the end, we try not to write all these steps out. We just kind of do stuff in our head and trust our brain. But so that goes away. 3x equals, you combine that, negative 15, and then we'll divide on both sides. I'll go ahead and write that out. So your x equals negative 5. And of course you can plug back in and check with a store button. You can do negative 5 stove x if you wanted to, if you have the 84 plus calculator or above, or you can just plug in the old-fashioned way and make sure it checks out. Okay, here's a little bit more going on. So this is what we consider multi-step. It's not too many steps, but so we look for distributive property. If you refer back to that list a while ago, but we don't have any distributive property, but we do have like terms. We don't need two of these running around, so we're going to combine like terms. So 2, so that would be 5 minus 3, that would be a positive 2x equals negative 6. And then everything goes back down to a two-step just about every time. Sometimes if your combined like terms work out just right, it may skip to a one-step, but most of the time it's going to end up a two-step when you're back to the SADME thing. So we'll get rid of this 2 by subtracting 2. 2x, that's negative 8. and then divide by 2, x equals -4, and you can plug back in and make sure it works out. All right, a little more going on. So now, if you refer back to our general rules for solving equations, we actually do have distributive property this time. And the way especially when I taught the 7th grade, I would always teach rainbow skittle was what I always taught when I did this. So I still use it in high school too. So we're going to that. So there's one rainbow and a skittle. And we always see a double rainbow. You don't always see double rainbows out and about, but when we're doing this, you always have the 2 rainbows. And the skittle means multiplication, to remind us that we're multiplying and we're not obeying that sign. We're not saying 4 plus 5, but we're multiplying. So we have to distribute, and then we will also have like terms, and then we don't have the grow going on because we don't have variables on both sides. So we'll skip that little thing again, and then we'll go to SADME again. So -12x plus 20 minus 8 equals 14. And now we're back to where we were a while ago. This one looks a lot like what we started with on number 2 a while ago. So we combine like terms, so -12x, that's going to be a positive 12 equals 14. And then you're back at SADME again. You're back to your 2-step equation. So I'll just throw him over without writing it down. -12x equals, when I move him over there, he'll become a -12 and join with those, so it'll be 2. And then divide by -12, divide by -12. So your answer, that will reduce to a -1/6. Z minus 10 equals 3 on to 6 minus 2z. Okay, so now this will entail all of those things. That DPCLT grows SADME, that will have all of this. Okay, so your first job is to simplify both sides of the equation. This side is just kind of hanging out because he doesn't have anything to do. But this side has some distributive properties. So we'll jump over there and do that first, and then we will start the solving process. So 8z minus 10 equals distribute. So 18 minus 6z. Okay, so both sides are simplified. There's no DPCLT over here. There's no DPCLT over there. So now we have the GRO. We have to get rid of one of these letters. Or again, you could just say, just bring them over and combine them, however you want to look at it. So that's what we'll do. I always get rid of the baby one. Equations, it really doesn't matter, but if we had inequalities, then we won't have to worry about flipping a sign if we get rid of the baby one, in this case. So I'll stick to my guns and get rid of the smaller one. So I'll get rid of him by saying plus 6z, and just that easy, they go away. So plus 6z over here. Little inverse operations. So that's 14z minus 10 equals 18. And once again, we're back to a 2-step. So we automatically go back to the SADME thing. So chunk him over there. So 14z, that will be a 28 on that side. And then divide by 14. Plug back in both sides, make sure both sides are equal. And that should work out. Alright. Here's your one to do independently. -18 minus 6k equals 6 on to 1 plus 3. Okay, so if you would like to copy that down, and then if you would pause the video and work it by yourself, and then press play again, and then you'll see me work. So I'm going to go ahead and work it if you'll pause it and work it yourself. All right, so I have, hopefully you worked it, and I have distributed property over there, so I'm going to go do that. This side is just kind of hanging out. So negative 18 minus 6k equals distribute. So 6 plus 18k. So we distribute it in there. And then we have the bobs going on. We have barrel on both sides. We're going to get rid of one of them. I'm going to get rid of my smallest one. So I'm going to add 6k. Add 6k. That's going to go away. Negative 18 equals 6. That's going to be positive 24k. And now I'm back to a two-step again. This time my letter is over here. Wherever the letter is, I'm going to leave him. I'm not going to start jumping stuff. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to run into much trouble with equations, but if this is greater than, less than, inequalities, and you start telling that I got to have my letter on my left side, then you're going to miss stuff and miss stuff and miss stuff. So wherever he is, I'm going to leave him. Some people don't like the letter over there, but he's fine right there where he is. So I'm going to get rid of my 6. That's a negative 24 equals 24. Okay, bring them down, and then divide by 24. So negative 1 equals. Okay, once again you plug in, and you should get that. All right, real quickly, I'm just going to do just a couple of going from standard form or something that's almost standard form and back to slope-intercept form. Throughout your maths, you have to be able to graph, but before you're able to graph, you have to be able to solve for y. So, slope-intercept form. I kind of like to say slope y-intercept form, because once we get in this form, it will tell us our slope and our y-intercept, not the x-intercept. So let's just do a couple of these real fast before we run out of time. For x, and say y equals 24. Alright, so our job is to get y by itself. We pretend that y is a loner and he does not want any company with him. We're headed here. This is our buddy right there. Alright, so let's solve for y. So we're going to throw the 4x over. So you could say minus 4x on both sides, but we'll just pick him up and throw him. And when he passes over my little magic wand, we'll pretend he changes his sign. So negative 8y, you don't want to forget that negative sign. He's a minus there, but now he turns into a negative since he's starting my math sentence there. So negative 8y equals, I'm going to stick that 4x right here in front of the 24 because that's where I want my x term, and he turns into a negative 4x and then plus 24. And then we will kill the multiplication by inverse operation using division. So we divide by negative 8 over there. Those cancel. They turn into a 1. They don't really cancel, but they turn into a 1, which would be imaginary. So we divide this by negative 8 also. Okay, I call this, if I've ever taught you before, I call this butterfly. Actually, a student came up with that a few years ago. This is not the for real butterfly method that people use with cross multiplying stuff. But I call this the butterfly method because you have to divide those two and divide those two, so that looks like butterfly wings, somebody said one time. So there's, you have to remember to divide both of those. So we will bring that down, y equals, and some of you may have teachers where they actually divided him by negative 8 and him by negative 8 and wrote it 3 times, which is fine also. Alright, so negative 4 divided by a negative 8 reduces to 1/2 x, so there's my slope, and then 24 divided by negative 8 is negative 3. So here, so now we can graph, we can solve systems of equations by graphing if we were doing that kind of thing. If these were inequalities, we could graph and shade and do many things. So this is a skill that has to be learned. All right, we'll do one more, and it'll be an independent practice, and I will put it up here, and then you can pause the video and work it, and then you can press play and then watch me do it. We'll deal with that. All right, if you'll work that. All right, hope you've worked it. Now, I do have the y on the wrong side. There's nothing wrong with him being over there, but people don't like that. But I'm going to leave him there. Again, since we're doing equations, it really doesn't matter if we just shift everything over as long as your signs are the same. But it sure is a bad habit, because if this was an inequality, it would be a mess. And you'd spend a week trying to get all that stuff sifted out. So I'm not going to move him. I'm just going to leave him right there. At the very end, I can move him, but I'm still not going to move him. But I could move him at the very, very end, and that's kind of the only safe time to move him. And it's still not real safe if it's an inequality. But anyway, so I'm going to bring him over here. The negative 16 jumps over here. He changes his sign to a positive. So negative 6x plus 16 equals 4y. And then we divide by 4 on both sides. Again, most all of these are just 2 steps. So anything that's 2 steps can't be just real complicated. So if you're struggling with it, it wouldn't take long to get this down pat. And then divide by 4. And then here's your butterfly thing again. So negative 6 divided by 4 will reduce to negative 3 halves x. And then 16 divided by 4 reduces to a positive 4. And then equals y, because that changes to a 1. And so here's your slope. There's your y-intercepts. You could even sketch a graph real quick. The y-intercept's 4, then go down 3, right 2, and draw lines. There's your line that would form from that. All right, hope that was helpful.